Honorable Men Discord. Murder was the case. Let's talk about it. All right, let's get straight to it. I don't know what's going on in our community, but there's so much going on in the news, so many different things going on in the news, which is a good thing for a content creator. But there was a serial killer pretty much that was picked up, responsible for 14 bodies, and then little baby caught up in an avoidable situation that just makes no sense. First and foremost, let's get into it. Little baby's real name is Dominique Armani Jones, born December 3rd, 1994. He's 30 years old. From Atlanta, Georgia. And his label is Capital Motown Quality Control. Actually, I had to look this up because I'll be honest with you, I don't follow his music, but I'm aware of him, so I just want to be clear. His last album, which was released on the 3rd of January of this year, Wham, is under Quality Control Music / Motown Records. And why did I look into that? Because here's the thing. 2 13-year-old boys are no longer here. So there's some explaining to do, okay? There's some explaining to do because you have families mourning the loss of 2 13-year-old boys, one of which was celebrating his birthday, okay? Celebrating his birthday, 13 years old. Their combined age is not even little baby's age. Combined, it's 26. Their lives combined is only 26 years on this earth. Little baby's 30. So who's to blame for this? Okay? Who's to blame for this? I brought up the label of his most recent album. Do we blame Quality Control / Motown? We can. The parents of those 2 13-year-old boys absolutely can, right? As a matter of fact, when we're talking about the loss of life, if I'm in the shoes of those parents, I'm blaming Motown Quality Control. I'm blaming little baby. And if little baby has management, which I'm sure he has management, right? I'm blaming the management. I'm suing all three. And I'll tell you why. Because if little baby himself doesn't have enough self-control or common sense to know what he did was irresponsible, he's just getting sued for his ignorance, along with the label, and along with the, who was the other one that I blamed? Along with his management. Yes, the management's getting blamed because someone was supposed to intervene. First and foremost, another reason why I looked up the label of his last album is because had it been an independent project on an independent label, here's how I would look at that, right? You're not dealing with a major, so not justifying that the 2 boys lost their lives, but the way I would have looked at it was like, okay, he's on an indie label, which means he's probably shooting the video off of his own personal budget, which would explain why there weren't certain things put into place, right? What do you mean by certain things put into place? When you're dealing with a major label and you're recording a video, now I don't know what this video was for because this incident happened last year, I believe. They said it was July 2nd this incident happened, right? When you're dealing with a major label and you're shooting a video, the way things used to be is you get, depending on the location, you're supposed to get, what's the word I'm looking for? Clearance, but there's another word I'm looking for. You get clearance to shoot in certain locations, right? and it's documented because the major labels bring in legit film crews, right? Which, along with those clearances that you get, right? Permits, that's the word I was looking for. Permits. You get permits for shooting music videos the way major labels used to work. I don't know how it works in 2025. I'm not connected to the music industry like that, but I'm aware of how it used to operate. So if that's not how it operates, please correct me in the comments. I am capable of making mistakes, but let's continue. So he's a major artist on a major label going to shoot a music video, unless this was some mixtape his label didn't know about, because those things do happen. Those things do exist, right? But if his label was aware of the single he was shooting a video for, they are absolutely responsible. Because when you get a permit for a certain location, because you get these permits also because when you're dealing with a major artist such as Lil Baby, you're going to be creating crowd. You're gonna create huge crowds, right? So along with those permits comes the label has to be responsible for having police detail out there. Now, by all means, I don't know whether or not there was police detail out there, and if the shootings continued with police detail, then those members that got picked up absolutely deserved to be picked up, aside from the fact that there was loss of life with those two 13-year-old boys. But here, my point is, the label is responsible for getting the permits for the location. And usually, depending on the artist, most times it doesn't even matter if the artist is as large as Lil Baby or not as large as far as notoriety as Lil Baby. There's supposed to be police detail because they're going to attract crowds. Perfect example of that is the Not Like Us video shoot by Kendrick Lamar. And he's on TDE. There is no way that Kendrick Lamar could be outside in public and not draw a huge crowd, which would mean his label would get a permit for those different locations he shot the video at. I'm talking about the outside locations because I know I'm talking about Kendrick Lamar. When he shot the location in front of the burger joint and he shot at some landmark, I'm 100% sure there was police detail to keep things under control, right? Now, don't get me wrong, even with police details, some things like this can happen. But the label has part ownership in the loss of the two lives that occurred in July. If he has a manager, the manager is supposed to have a close enough relationship with the artist where they are aware of the music that's being put out. Management has a lot of different functions. Now, I don't know the functions. If he has a manager, I don't know the functions of the manager, but I could assume that the manager knew the record he was performing. And the manager should have a close enough relationship with Lil Baby to know, like, why are you shooting in this neighborhood? And should be able to question Lil Baby. Now, these are all hypotheticals that I'm bringing up. But if there's a manager, and if the manager was aware that he was shooting a video in a location intentionally where he had opposition, the manager's to blame if that's the case. If there's no manager, if he has no manager, disregard that. The label has to take some ownership for this because I'm sure the label was aware of the date, the time, the location, and if they gave it the green light, they have some ownership in this, in my opinion. This is my opinion on this, right? Obviously, the main person, I would say the first person to blame, is Lil Baby. Lil Baby was well aware of the fact that he was going into a neighborhood that had individuals that did not like him. And obviously, it was a ploy to show that, listen, he can go anywhere he wants to go. It doesn't matter how anybody feels about me. But it was very selfish to do that. Extremely selfish, because part of that crowd is not just your own personal entourage or your clique that you're involved with, but part of that crowd are fans, right? Or people, just local neighborhood people that just want to come out and see what the commotion's about, and maybe just be in the background and smile and just happy that you brought such a big name artist has brought the attention to that neighborhood, you know. And that's understandable. That happens all the time with filming whether it's a music video or if it's a TV series. It's going to create a crowd to a degree, right? So Little Baby absolutely is to blame for this. And at the very least, he's paying for the funeral for these two young boys. And that's if the family even wants to accept it. That's if the family even wants to accept it. At the very least, he's doing that. And he's, and even the label would suggest something like that. Or his manager, if he has a manager, would suggest something like that. But who's to blame? And I'm blaming Little Baby. Because Little Baby's 30 years old. And you can see it right there to my side. He's a 30-year-old young man. Not so young man, 30 years old. We can't chalk it up to, oh, he's still young. He's in his 20s. He's been ripping and running for a while now. I don't know how many albums how far in as far as albums he has, but he's at the age where he should know better. And this is a totally avoidable situation. But then again, here's the problem within our community is that it doesn't matter how old we get. So I'm pointing out his age of 30, but it doesn't matter how old we get when we continue to keep ties with people who are doing things of this nature. If you're still connected with the streets, you're still connected with a gang, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're going to still make the same mistakes of someone who's early teen, right? So him being 30 really doesn't mean much if he's still associating with the same people that he's been associating with when he was younger. And that's where the problem lies. But it's a problem that we all know we're well aware of, right? But the issue at hand is that within our community, there's a portion of our community, and I have to emphasize portion because I don't want to make this across the board. I have to be fair to those that actually wake up every day and do their best to live with integrity and morals, right? So there's a portion of our community that, again, as I mentioned in previous videos, that glorify this lifestyle. I was raised listening to rap music, and I still listen to rap music. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, right? But at this age, I'm able to listen to it and separate the do's and the don'ts of what the music promotes, right? As far as me personally and my decisions on my walk of life, on how I choose to conduct myself, I'm able to consciously separate the two, right? But the problem with a lot of these artists, and the problem with a small portion, or maybe not so small portion of our community, is we continue to cheer it on. We cheer on the ratchet behavior. We cheer on the drug dealers. We celebrate the drug dealers. You do time, you come back, it's like you graduated with a doctor's degree, right? So the who to blame is not a black and white. You can't give a black and white answer to who's to blame. Yes, we could, Little Baby, but then I'm gonna have to go there. His family, what's his family like? What's his parents who raised him? What are they like, right? And I'm not blaming the parents, but I'm just posing that question because we all know that there's some children who come from good homes that they don't live a decent life, or they don't live the life that their parents try to raise them living, right? So we know that happens also. But there's a lot of things to look in. Who is to blame? He's a 30-year-old man, so we have to blame him. We're not going to we're not going to immediately blame family members for this. But he's making decisions to stay in certain circles, so he has to take ownership to that. And it's unfortunate that, again, two 13-year-old boys, that their combined age does not make 30. And Little Baby was fortunate enough to see success and see 30 years of age. This is just it's an unfortunate situation, and it's very disappointing to hear, because again, when you are successful, I know, we make mistakes on all levels of life, whether you're rich or whether you're poor. There's people making mistakes. I understand that. But when do we start to learn that as we progress and we're blessed with the opportunity to make the kind of money that little baby's making, make the kind of money that little Dirk is making, when do we learn to separate ourselves from those things that draw us back? And to be honest with you, sometimes we're victims of our brand, right? Perfect example, little Dirk. Look at what he's going through. When your brand is connected to the streets, when the music you put out is connected to the streets, you almost set yourself up for failure, because even if in your heart you no longer want to make that type of music or promote that type of lifestyle, or maybe disassociate yourself with those people in the streets, your brand has already been built on that foundation. The foundation by which you come into the industry is either going to make or break you. You know, those are conversations that need to be had. But who is supposed to have those conversations with these men, these young men? And will they even respect that conversation? That's another discussion. The lack of respect. You know, there's elders that I'm pretty sure tried to speak to little Dirk, tried to speak to little baby at some point in time in their life, but did they respect the information? We'll never know. We'd have to hear them speak on that. But this situation is just avoidable, and it's just another example of how the community needs to get help. Individually, we need to get help so that collectively we do better than this. This is just, I don't have sympathy for little baby. I'm gonna just put it out there on record, because he made a decision that took the lives of two 13-year-old boys, especially one on his birthday. So, you know, you're gonna have to just miss me with the you feel bad for little baby. However this plays out, he has to take accountability for his actions and the choice that he made. Because ultimately, this would not have happened had he not shot the music video over there. All right. And before you come for me in the comments, if there's any of you that want to come for me in the comments, make sure you consider the parents of those two 13-year-old boys first. And just also consider yourself at 13 celebrating a birthday with your friends, and then your body's riddled with bullets. Consider that. That's all I have on this on this episode. I just had to get that out there because when I saw the news report, as a matter of fact, for those of you who have not seen the news report, let me just put this on. I have it queued up.
Atlanta police now blame the deaths of two Atlanta teens last summer on a violent street gang in our community. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us for Fox 5 News at 5. I'm Tom Haynes.
I'm Courtney Bryant. Just hours ago, APD announced they now have charged 7 people with the murders. Fox 5's Tyler Fingert is live at Atlanta Police Headquarters to tell us what we're finding out. Tyler?
Yeah, Courtney, good evening to you. Investigators say two 13-year-olds were innocent victims caught in a gang retaliation shooting while celebrating a birthday.
The overall theme in this case is grown men playing gangster.
Atlanta police say these are the innocent faces of gang violence in Atlanta. Two of them, 13-year-old boys Jacody Davis and Lamont Freeman, were killed. And 11-year-old Dontavius Davis was wounded last July in a shooting on Spark Street. APD says Freeman was killed on his 13th birthday.
Lamont Freeman was allowed to be a 13-year-old for 27 minutes before gang violence ultimately took his life.
During an afternoon news conference, investigators blamed the deadly shooting on a local rapper. They said the attack was in retaliation for the rapper entering a rival gang's territory to film a music video.
In the subsequent days, we saw homicides and shootings, and ultimately, the deaths of 2 children as a result of his cowardly actions, and you know who you are.
Authorities say a high-ranking member of the Goodfellas gang who was incarcerated orchestrated the attack using a smuggled cell phone. Following those instructions, the suspects opened fire at an apartment complex where the 3 young teens were gathered to celebrate Freeman's birthday. Police say they weren't the targets.
These kids were innocent victims. So when we talk about the gang involvement, these 2 13-year-olds and this 11-year-old, they didn't have a gang involvement.
Those arrested were identified as Keontae Sanders, Richard Hollis, Reginald Thomas, DeKeithion Mobley, Marcus Crawford, Tradon Crawford, and Allie Caldwell. The final 2 were arrested Tuesday. Police had some tough talk for those responsible.
Goodfellas Criminal Street Gang being one of the most hyper-violent gangs in the city of Atlanta, and we will pursue you relentlessly in making sure that we keep this city safe and suppressing violence.
And the investigation continues. There is a $50,000 reward for information about this case. We're live in downtown Atlanta tonight. Tyler Fingert, Fox 5 News.
Good to know police are finally getting some answers, Tyler.
And here's the thing. I'm just going to say this lastly. If for some reason little baby does not see any type of real justice for this, I recommend that he at least pay for the services for, the 2 children that died because of his actions. Because, right now they just picked up, I guess, the members of that gang, but it doesn't seem as though they're mentioning any I guess legal actions that's gonna take place against little baby. But yeah, at the very least, I think he knows that. I think he knows he needs to pay for those funeral services for those 2 13-year-olds at the very least. But I don't know. That's all I have to say for this. We need to we have a lot of work to do in this community. We have a lot of work to do. But as always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. Also, I'll see you on the next episode. And hopefully it's not a story about another artist making a poor decision. But I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Thank you.